Hello, gorgeous people, and welcome to another TV Central one-on-one podcast. I'm Aaron Ryan. This is episode 43, 2023. In Australia, domestic and family violence is disturbingly common. It is one of the main drivers of homelessness among women, children, and men. 1 in 6 women have experienced physical or sexual violence by a current or former partner, while for men it is 1 in 16. Set in 1990s regional Victoria, The Fort tells the story of one woman's battle to escape her abusive marriage while attempting to shelter her son from the grim realities of family violence. This is an engaging, emotional, and I would say an important film that highlights a dark issue in our society that is both disturbing and grossly quite common. The team behind The Fort are none other than the former co-host of Selling Houses Australia, winner of Celebrity Apprentice Australia, judge on the block, interior designer, publisher, business owner, and ambassador, the gorgeous Shaynna, and her 2 children, co-director and editor Carly Kenneally, and co-director and writer Jess Kenneally, whom we met on the wonderful series Country Home Rescue. It's a family affair. Shaynna, Carly, and Jess are all here. Hello, family, and thank you for joining me at TV Central.
Thank you.
How are we doing?
Thank you so much for having us.
I mean, we could, like Carly and I could have tried to send you a few more things to increase our bio. I don't think it still would have met mums, but it was funny. You were going, and I'm like, I wonder how we're going to sneak in here. But I think you did well. Thank you.
I got a question there about your background, so we want to hear about what you guys are up to. But no one beats Shaynna with resume.
Definitely not.
Look, you guys have such distinguished, successful, and busy careers, as just mentioned. Are you still able to be together on a regular basis, or does it take a TV Central podcast to get that time in?
We are so close, it's ridiculous. But actually, at the moment, I'm in Sydney, just for a couple of weeks, and then everyone's in Melbourne. But no, we are very lucky. We get to hang out all the time.
and really more so
work and fun.
Yeah, work and play, and more so since we made the film together as well. I think it's been something that look, we were always, the 3 of us really loved having family together, but yeah, making the film together, having that experience sort of drew us even closer again. And yeah, sometimes a little too much time, but I think that's a very good problem to have.
I was going to say, it's really interesting. Like, I do feel like Jess and I are very different. We've always talked about how different we are, but like the one thing we really had in common was like film and television and story, and that's what brought us together, is like making this film, and it's completely changed the dynamic of our relationship as like brother and sister, and it's just, yeah, it's been incredible. It's really cool.
All right, let's jump into this film because it is such a powerful film. Who would like to set the scene and tell us about the premise of the film?
I think Jess, the storyteller.
Well, sort of where we start with the film is it sort of starts in 1990. A mother, Kitty, is looking after and protecting her son, and she's in an abusive relationship with her husband Graham, and she wants to create a safe space for her boy, who she notices it's really affecting him. And by building a little fort or tent in his room, she gives him a really safe space for him to escape into different realities and try and help them both grow and escape the abusive relationship. It's, yeah, a story of mother and son and how domestic violence really and family violence impacts everybody surrounding the relationship.
I guess a movie so powerful and heartfelt can't be made without passion behind it. What was the inspiration to making this film, and also why does this story need to be told?
Well, it came from, like, I was the MC for Safe Steps Candlelight Vigil, and Carly and Jess were talking about doing a movie of some description. They were looking at doing something that was about women, for women. They were looking at grants. They were looking at doing a short movie. And we had touched on the fantasy world with Jess because he loves that sort of environment. And we were looking at the main topics at the time was family and domestic violence. So by me being MC at Safe Steps Candlelight Vigil, it was so confronting because Jess and his partner Emma came at the time, and it's the roll call at the end where they have the roll call of all the women and children that have been murdered by a current or former partner, and the ages are there as well. So you've got their full names and the ages, and that's deliberate to show that this is real. And the ages from somewhere sort of from 80 to 3 months, it touches everywhere, and it's not just, it's not just something that's fictitious. So I think the thing is that I knew then that I was being an ambassador, but I had the opportunity to use my profile to actually give it more of a voice, and then for Carly and Jess to use their creative energy, and that's sort of where it started.
Sometimes I feel like I live in 1823 instead of 2023. I mean, family violence is still a major issue in this country. The film is obviously timely and relevant, but I know this is a hard question to answer, but why are we in the 21st century and still having this part of our society?
Look, with that, and that's what came about with the charity Voice of Change after we made the movie, is that the simplicity of it is that we think it's someone else's problem. We aren't looking at generational trauma. We're not looking at fixing generational trauma. And we're also, a lot of people are in denial and don't want to talk about it. Like, we're getting a lot of pushback from people wanting to see the movie because it's like, oh, that's a bit uncomfortable. I don't think I want to talk about that. But the statistics you were saying, one in six, there is statistics of women being abused of 1 in 3. So if you look in your workplace, you look at your friendship circle, and it's happening to people. And I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they said, oh yeah, I'm really lucky and none of my friends are in that situation. And I said, well, how do you know? Do you sit there and talk about it? Because people hide it because it's quite shameful. And we put a lot of shame on the victim, and having the support as a victim and being victimized when you're coming out and saying you need help. That's the problem in society.
I'd also like to stress, that it's like it doesn't discriminate between like age, sex, race, sexuality, gender, education, economic status. Like it is through all areas of society too. So yeah.
The tagline for the film, where do you go? Who do you turn to when home is where the harm is? Just the premise of that question is a smack of tragedy and rawness. But what is the answer to that question?
I don't think we have the answer, and there's certainly more professionals that do have that answer, and there are a bunch of amazing services which, if you go to Voice of Change website, they can lead you to a lot of those as well. But I think what we were talking about when we asked that question in the film was that even though you think you're extremely close to somebody, and a character in the film, Mary, who is Kitty's sister, she's reaching out to Kitty and she's trying to help, but Kitty doesn't really know how to explain it. And there is a lot of shame associated with that. So it's more, I think, having the film, and the reason we made it was to have conversation about these things and try and reduce a bit of the stigma about it. So if we can have conversations about domestic violence, and if that's promoted through art, then it might make it easier to turn to other people as well. Yeah. So having that question of when home is where the harm is, where do you go? Well, we're hoping it can be a number of different places. We're hoping it can be other family members you can reach out to, friends you can reach out to. And you might not be in that situation, but you could reach out to someone as well. And we just think it's a good way of opening that conversation through film, through art, having it as a fictitious story as well. So you aren't feeling distance from it, that it's like, oh, that's just one person's story. It couldn't happen to me. This can be anyone.
Yeah. Will the film be triggering for people where the theme hits too close to home? Now, I do say that with a footnote, because just because something is triggering doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I mean, being triggered can also lead to healing and hope. But could it be triggering for some people that are actually dealing with this at the moment?
There's lots of different types of violence. It's just not the physical. So in the movie, there's a lot of coercion control of financial abuse, of your space, being able to contact people. and emotional abuse. There's a whole lot of different titles within that. It does trigger, and we do have a trigger warning, but I say to people, it's no different than what you're seeing on Netflix. It's no different than what you're seeing out on the streets. I think it's because it's shown in a home, and it's a story that is taken from lots of different, sort of patterns that are happening. And I think the thing is that has been triggering for a few people is watching the movie and not realizing that those things were actually going on in their relationship. And I think that's a really important thing to note, that it's such a subtle thing that can start happening that people think the physical violence is an abusive relationship when it's all the other little patterns that happen at the same time. So I think it's really thought-provoking rather than being very, very triggering.
We all need to work through our triggers and our things, and everyone has capabilities of both sides of the story as well. There is the victim and the perpetrator. We are both able to do both. So, just pick that there. Yeah.
Totally. And adding on to that myself as well, I think it's probably just because we're being open about the subject matter. I mean, when you're seeing it directly on screen, we're not doing anything like obtuse in terms of how we're portraying anything, but it's just we're being open about the conversation, we're being open about the subject matter, that, okay, people think, well, now this is triggering. But as Mum said as well, there's nothing on screen that you're not going to see in almost any other genre of film, but it's just we're being open and we're focusing on this being the subject matter.
Absolutely. Even watching the 6 p.m. news and watching tragedies and stuff overseas. And Eliza Charleythe played the main role of Kitty in the film. Obviously a key role to cast. Why was Eliza the standout for the role?
Well, so I think one thing, when you're making a project, having familiarity with some of the key roles is really important. And Eliza and I went to drama school together in 2013, and we had a great rapport and a great acting rapport and a great professional rapport as well. We'd worked on a few things together. We'd sort of been in the Australian premiere of the play Good Egg. We'd written some things together, and we'd sort of come to it in mind with her being the lead role. The type of actress Eliza is as well is she is so committed and researched to her role that we knew it was very important that she was always going to do it justice as well. And she caught up with multiple survivors, multiple people who work in the space as well, and sort of taking on those stories of those people and really wanting to do it justice. So I think it's very important as well that she is a very strong presence on screen. The small little tidbit as well, like I'm 5'8" and she's 5'10". She is taller and she is like almost a little bit of a bigger physical presence than me as well. And she is quite a strong character too. So having that strength of woman on screen, I think, was very important to us as well. Not playing into the stereotype that somebody who's going to be susceptible to family violence is just a meek and quiet woman, which isn't the case, and can be, is not right. But yeah, she brought a lot of characteristics to the role that was going to give it a lot of depth and a very, very strong character and strong female presence.
Maybe one for Carly or Shaynna, another cast member, the character of Graham. What was the standout for that actor getting that role?
Nepotism.
I think the hairline was a really good one.
Okay, the in joke there for people listening is Graham is played by Jess Kenneallythe. So, but he has been, as he said, he has been to a drama school as well. So there we go. All right, so the house where the movie is shot will be somewhat familiar to audiences. Tell me about the background of that house and then what ultimately it became.
Look, the weird thing is that I'd been looking personally at Mount Macedon and Kyneton to buy a place, a holiday place for a couple of years. But I was looking at acreage, so I was always just looking at anywhere general. And this house kept popping up all the time. And we had our...
And you specifically didn't want to do a wrapper up.
I didn't want to do a wrapper up. Yeah.
I forgot that.
But the thing was, like, I was looking at, houses, and I said to Jess, look, if you want me to start looking at places, what's the floor plan? What do you see? Because we still hadn't had the full script.
And at this point, sorry, we were talking about renting a place for a couple of weeks. We weren't, full disclosure.
Yeah, full disclosure. And so it was going to be about 8 months down the track before we were going to film it. So Jess drew the floor plan. Look, I need a long hallway. I need stairs. I need this. And I need something that's, set in the 90s, something that's really sort of a little bit run down. And the way he's describing, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, it's that house. It's that house. So that night, I just couldn't find it online. I was trying to find it. And then I reckon it was probably 10 o'clock. I'm just making up the time, but it was late on the Saturday night. And I sent it to Carly and Jess going, would this be the house? And Carly and Jess nearly jumped through the text message. And Carly goes, can I go see it? I said, look, you can go see it. Just doesn't matter. Like, we can't buy it. We're not going to do it. It's 8 months down the road. So that was the Saturday. Carly on the Tuesday went, I'm going to look at it. Went and had a look at it. Rang me and said, Mum, we've got to get it. What are we going to do? And I said, it's ridiculous. And then when I hung up the phone, I went, well, actually, it's not that expensive, and I could flip it, and I could look. I'll have a think about it. I'll speak to the accountant, and put an offer in by Friday. And all of a sudden, they accepted. I didn't think they'd accept it, and they accepted that night. And I just sat there and I went, I swore. And Carly was with me because Carly and I were up in Sydney with a rap party of selling houses, and I looked at Carly and I went, with the F word, I think I just bought a house.
Oh my God.
That's how it happened. And then we just thought, but the great thing was, not only was it the setting for the movie, we did it very low budget. 8 people slept in there. We had bunks. We had borrowed mattresses. So we used it as the production office. We had it as accommodation. And it ended up being this really great environment to do a movie, because it meant that everybody had to be close and talk. And I don't know about you, Carly and Jess, but I thought it was, considering it was so damn cold, but at the same time, I think it really helped build a great rapport on set.
Totally. And then, like, by the time we did Country Home Rescue, like, we actually already felt like it was our home. We already had so many memories in there from this production that not only brought the 3 of us together in a really unique way, like working together with your family. Obviously, you go through a lot, but we created this whole other family within the production world, through all of us bringing different people that we knew from different worlds in together, that 5 years down the track, we're all still collaborating and hanging out and in constant contact with each other. So even though the house has been, the crux of this like traumatic story,
for the brief of the house being Amityville horror, it came together really nicely, and we've made a nice house out of it at the end as well. So yeah, it was well received in the end.
All right, so we know about Shaynna's resume. So let's go to Carly and Jess. Maybe we'll start with you, Carly. Can you just tell the audience a bit about your own passions and sort of your career to date before the Fort?
Well, I've been a bit of a traveler. I've kind of tried a few things.
Yeah.
But storytelling's definitely been a main focus of mine since I was in my early 20s, and I was really got into podcasting really early and telling radio stories. And anytime I read a book or a news article about someone that I found interesting, I would just like go research them and interview them and make a story about it. And then that led me to go to New York, and I lived in New York for a year doing a fellowship about documentary, where I met 6 Americans and 6 internationals, and the 12 of us lived together for a year and studied documentary and film. And then, when I came back, I have been working as an editor and an assistant editor ever since, just on TV series, commercials, short films, music videos, all that kind of thing. And now it's been 10 years.
Wow. And what was your specific role with the Fort?
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose you kind of do a bit of everything when it's like a self-funded film. So we were producing, it wasn't our intention to initially direct it. This was a film where Jess wanted to act in it and I wanted to edit it. And so we had thought that we would get a director to come on board, but we got so far down the line that it was kind of like we can't afford to pay anyone to do this, and also we don't want to give the creative control to anyone else either. So then we went to the editing suite, and that was, and then I cut the film. So yeah.
Bit of everything from directing to editing to probably caterer as well, and accountant. And what about you, Jess? What's been sort of your passions and sort of career before the Fort?
Yeah, so before the Fort, I was sort of focusing on acting. So in 2013, I studied through NIDA Open, which is their 1-year course in Melbourne. And sort of I'd gotten into that after sort of chasing a few other, dreams. I'd always loved performing growing up and always really wanted to do drama and acting, but to sort of focus on sport and academics, probably think the things that you're supposed to. So yeah, sort of after university where I deferred, wasn't really grabbing me. I ended up doing outdoor recreation to be like, look, I love, physical activity and being outdoors, but I just couldn't get grabbed by it. And sort of, always kept coming back to, look, I want to act. I love it. And mum really pushed me. And while I was overseas traveling myself, finding yourself as you do in your early 20s, as so many Australians are used to, mum and I were talking about it, and she actually sent me the audition link for that course, and signed up for it and auditioned, I think maybe 2 weeks after I got back from overseas, got in, and sort of that's what I wanted to chase. So look, I think like any creative in Australia will tell you that you really need to create your own work to get any work, really, unless you're extremely fortunate. So I'd been writing a lot and that kind of thing in between acting, and hadn't gotten that break. Fingers crossed this is. So yeah, sort of coming into that, had sort of was writing and acting, and then co-directing with Carly was actually a really nice, I think, revelation for both of us. Really realizing how much we actually enjoy and love directing, and the certain parts of both of us as well that were our strengths were the other person's probably not as strong, and we were really able to go hand in hand. That okay, Carly's fantastic at that. I'm going to let her run that, and I can then learn that for me on my next directing gig. If that happens, then I'm going to use what Carly's done there to uplift me. And I think it really gave us a lot more sort of drive, and didn't allow us to go off the rails either for first time debut directors to not get sidetracked, because the other person would always pull us back onto the tracks, which was really nice. So yeah, and then from now on, just I don't know, we'll try and make some more films.
Well, because I absolutely love pre-production, but being on set, I actually find a little bit boring. Whether that's where Jess thrives.
I love it on set.
Beautiful, yeah. And I just miss pre. And I don't know. Yeah, it was cute. Yeah.
It works well, doesn't it? Those strengths and weaknesses, so everything gets done. And Shaynna, obviously a big project. What was your day-to-day job like with the Fort?
Well, I was sort of letting the kids sort of take the kids. They're adults, but my kids. I was letting them take the lead.
The directors of the film. I'm sorry, the directors.
Well, we were helping with like the production, so sort of part of like running a building site is that you do production as well. So we were sort of supporting whatever they needed for that, because I was filming selling houses a lot of the time. So as they were filming, I was coming in where I could. We were working on the set design, even though we had the house. We had to buy all the furniture, loan the furniture, so I had to put together that whole thing. So there was a whole team of us doing that, and then continuity on site was on some filming. That was probably my most stressful part, is like I was so focused on the continuity, because one thing I hate is watching a movie or a show and I just focus on, hang on, wasn't that meant to be there, so that was fun but stressful at the same time. And then I've really been part of the post part of getting the film out there, trying to get distribution, making contacts, sort of doing that next part of it. So really creating the film was Carly and Jess's role. Mine was sort of more the before and after.
Natural born hustler.
Maybe the fault will make it into there's this website called Movie Mistakes or whatever, and it has those little
Please
continuity. No, continuity type things in it, and it's in all movies, like even like Star Wars and things like that, where you think they've done so well, but they say, you know, if you look at this scene, there's a mirror and you can actually see the camera guy, and you think, wow, in a movie like, you know, Star Wars or the Terminator or something like that. So yeah, we'll see how we go with that.
Well, hopefully people watch it enough to be able to pick up those mistakes. Watch it as many times as you can, guys.
My biggest one, though, my biggest one is Game of Thrones with the coffee cup.
Oh, yeah.
There was like a takeaway coffee cup. Oh my God. And was it it was like 3 Men and a Baby. There was like an extra one of the crew that couldn't get out in time is actually behind the curtains. So you see this body, and they were talking about all this time it was a ghost. It was just one of the crew got caught there as they were filming.
Shaynna, with the interior designing stuff, like with the movie, is it exactly the same with a film comparing to do, you know, home interior designing, or is the premise or the principle the same, or is it completely different?
No, it's very different. It's more. It is a staged photo shoot. You've got to consider the script and the action. So you are doing it around the actions. Carly and Jess did this treatment. It was mainly Carly that this is the look, this is the feel. So they put that book together with all the colors and everything like that, and then I had my brief, and then went from there. And really, it's working from the script back. You don't start with the interior, and then you start working out what are the props you need, what are the actions of, you know, do we need cups for this, do we need, you know, certain types of things. And then we had the timeline of the, you know, set in the 1990s, and the fact that they hadn't had money to renovate it, so a lot of the stuff was from his parents, and so there was all that part of it. So it was actually so much fun. And the person, Shaynna, who was doing all the buying for us and the sourcing, she just had so much fun. Like, I'd be out on set somewhere and she'd be sending me text messages. What about this couch? What about that lamp? What about this? What about that? And so she was going to shop. We were calling friends. So that part of it is very much doing a photo shoot, but it's completely different from doing a home interior.
You guys haven't actually touched on this at the start of the podcast, but, you know, you've worked together on Country Home Rescue and the Fort, and I'm sure other projects. Living together as a family is hard enough work for most people. Living and working is another thing. You all seem strong-minded and passionate in your own right. Were there difficult moments making a film together where the theme is so powerful and each of you have like so much passion for the subject and getting this film right, or were there clashes?
Oh, well, I mean, I was going to say the clashes weren't anything about the film. They were about everything else. So I think that was the one constant.
Still going on, Aaron.
Oh, they're still happening. They're still happening.
So no, look, I think on set it wasn't. We kept ourselves in check on the set. It was when real life was happening.
I do want to say no. I do think the first day that Jess and I we had this explosive moment where I think we could have just gone straight into like brother and sister mode, where you just like you forget everyone else is around you and you know you don't hold back, and I think we both sort of went to launch into that, and then we realized our place and who was around and the content we were making, and it was almost like our eyes just said it, and we were like both took a deep breath, and I really think for those 3 weeks that was the only moment that happened.
Yeah, and it happened on day one, and it kind of set the tone for like, all right, what we're making is bigger than what our disagreement is, and our disagreement was a thing like something that was happening in the film or how to do something for this shot.
It's probably an ego thing.
Us having an ego, never, Carly. I don't believe you. So yeah, and then the good thing about that was we actually talked about that afterwards. We're like, look, okay, you were right about this. I was right about that. Let's go forward with that. And if we have that disagreement again, talk about it like this. And it was actually good that it probably happened on day one, because it meant we knew we didn't want to get back to that place, and we could set the tone for the rest of the film.
All right, so I just wanted to ask what was coming up next for you guys. Do you have a next project, Jess, coming up, or what's after the Fort?
Look, still writing spec scripts, still writing treatments and that kind of thing. I think we're holding off making anything until we get a bit of backing, because it's taken such a big effort from everybody to get to this point. I'm working as a sound recordist as well to support my family and me. But yeah, look, I'm open for jobs as well. If anybody sees the Fort and they think, hey, you need a bald actor, that's me. So,
Working Jess.
look, you've got to. I've learned this from you, Mum. You've got to hustle. Every opportunity,
Hustle.
you've got to hustle. So,
All about the hustle.
And what about you, Carly?
And for me, I'm all edit. I work for a post-production company called ARC. We do like advertising, film, TV series. We're across Melbourne and Sydney. We have editors in London, LA, Tokyo. And my main role is the senior assistant editor there, and I edit as well. I love it. That's my passion. That's my main focus. And so yeah, just collaborating with directors on all different forms of, storytelling.
And Shaynna, I'm sure there's 27 things that you're probably doing at once, but lots of work with your business and obviously the block coming up.
Yeah, well, we're over halfway on the block at the moment. I do have an online project I'm working on at the moment. I haven't been able to really get it up and running because we're working so hard on the charity Voice of Change and for the movie. But, I'm sort of going a little bit quiet. So the kids will start getting a bit scared because I have a bit too much time in my hands, and I'm already thinking, ooh, what can I do? What can I do? So there's a few little projects going in my head that I will not say out loud because I don't think the kids will ever speak to me again.
idle time is very dangerous for Mum. I'll say that.
Well, if you want to come over to Perth, I've got a beautiful 5-bedroom house that overlooks all of Perth and the city and stuff that could do with a bit of a zhuzhing, so we could do something there if you get bored. Has there been any talks of a second season of Country Home Rescue? Now, obviously the premise of the first season means that you're kind of limited to one season, but you could do some sort of spin-off where you help another family move to the country and do up an old property. Is any talks at all, or is that just one season kind of?
No, there's talks of projects, but it is money and it's time schedules and things like that. But yeah, we're talking about something which, fingers crossed, could get up and running.
Nice. I guess everyone wants to know, obviously, how the house is going now. From Country Home Rescue, your own house now. Is it filled with wonderful new memories? Has anything changed from what we saw in the final episode?
It is. I wouldn't change a thing. It's absolutely beautiful. We've made so many beautiful memories. We've had a couple of Christmases there. I think my favorite memory so far was when we had Mother's Day last year, and in the parlor we had, we had to have a morning tea because Jess had to go to work, and Carly made waffles and scones, and we sat in there, and there was, Emma and Olive and Jess and I. We pretended that we were in France somewhere in Versailles, and we had high tea in the parlor, and then Carly and I read stories to each other. It was effing amazing.
And still driving the neighbors mad with the bell.
No, the bell. I still. It's amazing. Every time you take somebody up around there, if you've got somebody over a tour, everyone has to ring the bell. They got to do it. But you just look around, you make sure what time is it. You close all the louvers up there, and you're like, just do a light one, just a light one. You can't remind everybody we're up there every single week.
All right, and finally, back to the Fort. People will be asking, obviously, where can I see it? Where's the screening? So, what are the details if people want to see the Fort?
Well, we're doing a distribution through FanForce, and it's like a community sort of screening. So at the moment, we've got one coming up in Perth, which is let me have a look, on the 31st of May. We have a screening. We have just screening in Canberra and Queensland. They've had to be postponed, but they're coming, so that'll change soon. We've got one coming up in Como in Victoria on the 25th of May. We've got one in Noosa on the 5th of June, and we've got well, we've got South Australia on the 7th of June, and we've got Paddington on the 13th of June. So those ones are set. But the great thing about this is anyone can go online to this FanForce page and they can make their own screening. And it means that they just book a day and a time that suits them. They get all their friends and they all register to buy a ticket. If you hit a tipping point, which say if it's a cinema that holds 80, if you get 40 tickets sold, the screening goes ahead. So it doesn't cost anyone anything to set up a screening. But as we were saying earlier, that this is the movie about conversation. It's about making sure that you watch the movie, get the conversation going with your friends to the next people, the next people. So it's really good to invite people to saying, look, this is a conversation. This is something to talk further about. So we want to create that movement on the ground about people communicating and taking taboo out of family and domestic violence.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see it. I'll be at the Perth screening on the 31st of May. It should be a great night. Thank you all for your passion and for shining a light on a subject matter that is disturbing but so important to address. As a society and through films like this, it's an absolute opportunity to break down that stigma of shame associated with family violence, because then people are more likely and able to step forward and get help. You guys are legends. Beautiful family. Well done with the Fort. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. That was Shaynna Blaze, Jess Kenneally, and Carly Kenneally from the movie The Fort. You can go to fanforce.com/films/The Fort. Now, Fanforce is fan-force.com/films/The Fort. So you can get details for tickets and screenings. And also you can head to voiceofchangeau.org. That's voiceofchangeau.org. And for information just about the movie and all the news about it, trailers and stuff, head to thefortmovie.com. That's thefortmovie.com. That's it for this podcast. For all the latest news, streaming info, ratings, television guides, and podcasts, head to tvcentral.com.au. Until next time, I'm Aaron Ryan. Thanks to the beautiful family of Shaynna, Jess, and Carly. Bye for now.